It wasn't a bomb or a battleship that nearly sabotaged D-Day. It was a lie. A single deception so audacious, so absurd, that it rewrote the course of the war. In June 1944, as Allied forces prepared the most ambitious amphibious assault in history, the fate of the free world may have hinged not on a general or a gun, but on a frail, double-crossing British spy who convinced Hitler the attack would never come to Normandy. His weapon? Not steel, but storytelling, and it just might have saved the war. By 1943, desperation gripped the Allied command. Hitler's Atlantic Wall stretched from Norway to the Spanish border, bristling with concrete bunkers, underwater mines, and 50,000 Nazi soldiers ready to repel any seaborne invasion. The question wasn't just how to break through, but where. Every inch of coastline became a puzzle piece in a deadly game of chess. Normandy was the target. But if the Germans anticipated that, the whole operation would collapse before a single boot hit the beach. The Allies needed more than troops and tanks. They needed a mirage so convincing that Hitler would move his legions to chase shadows, and that demanded something no blueprint could provide: the mind of a traitor, loyal only to the truth he chose to tell. That traitor was Juan Pujol García, a failed chicken farmer from Barcelona with a flair for flair. Rejected as a spy by both the British and the Germans, he somehow convinced the Nazis that he was their man in London, even though he never set foot in England at first. From a dingy Lisbon hotel room, he spun a vast web of lies using library books, radio reports, and pure imagination. He invented entire networks of fake sub-agents, each with vivid personalities and fictional intel, carefully feeding Berlin exactly what it wanted to hear: that the invaders were coming through Calais, not Normandy. And the astonishing part? They believed him. So completely that Hitler refused to release reinforcements to Normandy, even as the beaches burned with Allied fire. To pull off this illusion required more than clever writing. It demanded flawless timing, daring improvisation, and sheer nerve. The British codenamed Pujol Garbo, in homage to the actress famed for disappearing into her roles. Under MI5's careful orchestration, Garbo's fake network grew into a grand ballet of fabricated letters, fake arrests, and strategically staged mishaps. One agent reported being too ill to deliver crucial papers. Another was tragically killed by a bomb in London. His obituary was planted in a Spanish newspaper to sell the story. MI5 even intercepted Nazi couriers not to stop them, but to slip in disinformation. By 1944, Berlin was so dependent on Garbo's reports, they awarded him the Iron Cross, oblivious that every word had been choreographed by his British handlers. It wasn't just deception, it was theater on a continental scale, and for a while, Hitler bought every ticket to the wrong show. But no stage play unfolds without near disaster. As D-Day approached, Garbo and his handlers faced their greatest challenge yet, delivering a report times after times, the landings that would still convince the Germans the main event was yet to come. With the beaches of Normandy soaked in blood and the scale of the invasion undeniable, Garbo sent Berlin an apologetic message. His agents had simply been delayed and regretted not warning them in time. Then, he delivered the real masterstroke, a warning that this Normandy attack was just a feint, a diversion to draw German forces away from the real invasion at Calais, still to come. Miraculously, Hitler bought it. He held back panzer divisions for weeks in reserve for a second landing that never came, giving Allied forces the critical time to gain a foothold in Europe. The truly insane part? Garbo lied to the Nazis not just once, but again, times after times. The truth was obvious, and they still believed him. It was espionage wrapped in audacity, sealed with a performance so convincing that it changed the tide of the war without a single shot fired by its architect. Behind Garbo's brilliance, however, lay an entire machinery of cunning minds, sleepless analysts, and one of the war's most overlooked intelligence masterpieces, Operation Fortitude. This was the broader umbrella that housed Garbo's illusions, and its scale was staggering. From fake radio traffic hinting at invasion forces in southeast England to inflatable tanks positioned across fields to fool Luftwaffe reconnaissance, the British and American deceivers choreographed an imaginary army. They even went as far as assigning General George Patton, perhaps the most feared Allied commander in German eyes, to command this phantom force, the first U.S. Army group, based in Kent. The very presence of Patton served as bait, reinforcing Garbo's lies and suggesting that Calais, directly opposite Kent, was the true prize. What made this operation so groundbreaking wasn't the technology, but the psychological dance of trust and doubt. To manipulate an enemy who is actively hunting lies requires not just falsified documents or static dummies, but a deep understanding of how humans believe. And in that dance between faith and fiction, Garbo became a maestro, proving that the most explosive weapon in war isn't hidden in a bunker. It's hidden in the mind. Operation Fortitude didn't just trick the Germans into looking the wrong way, it transformed deception into a science. At its peak, over 1,000 people were involved in the effort, many working in secrecy, weaving threads of misdirection that reached from Downing Street to German high command. Postal records were faked to imply military buildups. Soldiers filled out ration requests for non-existent battalions to create a logistical paper trail. Even double agents beyond Garbo played parts in the grand performance, each assigned scripts, quirks, and backstories. The result? German reconnaissance planes photographed empty beaches in Normandy and overlooked the bustling military traffic cleverly staged elsewhere. They saw exactly what the Allies wanted them to see, a story so carefully curated it became indistinguishable from reality. And in that illusion lay not just a tactical advantage, but a profound revelation that in war, as in life, belief is often more powerful than truth. Yet, despite its astronomical success, the legacy of Garbo and Operation Fortitude remains shrouded in strange obscurity. Juan Pujol García vanished after the war, his story buried beneath the rubble of victory and silence. For decades, even his family believed he had died. In truth, MI5 helped him fake his death and slip away to Venezuela under a new identity. It wasn't until the 1980s that his tale resurfaced, startling a new generation with its sheer implausibility. Here was a man with no formal training, no inside access, and no real military expertise. Yet he outsmarted one of the most feared regimes in history. His story forces us to reconsider the nature of heroism and the battlefield itself. What if the most decisive blow dealt to the Third Reich didn't come from a tank or a plane, but from a man with nothing but a pen, a typewriter, and the will to be believed? War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. Still, for all its brilliance, Operation Fortitude carried terrifying risks. Had the Germans sniffed out the hoax, the consequences could have been catastrophic. The deception hinged on a delicate balance of misinformation not enough, and it would be ignored. Too much, and it would arouse suspicion. MI5 had to anticipate every German doubt, every analyst's question, and ensure that Garbo's invented agents behaved less like characters in a story and more like real, flawed people. One agent missed a report due to car trouble. Another complained of homesickness and threatened to quit. These subtle imperfections were crafted to make the lies breathe. Yet each whimsical fiction could have unraveled the illusion if detected. The success of D-Day didn't rest on overwhelming force or superior firepower alone. It hinged on the trust of an adversary being manipulated in real time. And that truth, as fragile as it was dangerous, rode on a slim wire strung between performance and plausibility. The Allies won because they dared to treat intelligence not just as facts to gather, but as an art to craft. In this war of shadows, it was not the strongest who triumphed, but the most convincing. Garbo's deception was so effective that even after the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy, the German high command continued to expect a second, larger invasion force at Calais, a mirage that never came. Rather than deploying strategic reserves where they were desperately needed, Hitler kept his elite divisions idle, waiting for ghosts. This delay allowed the Allies to expand their beachhead, pour in reinforcements, and begin the long march across Europe. But while the victory at Normandy is remembered as a feat of military coordination, its foundation rested on fragile trust placed in one of the greatest fabrications of the modern age. The incredible part? No weapon, no squadron, no fleet could have delivered that effect. Only the quiet, relentless pressure of one man's theater of deceit held back the tide long enough for liberation to begin. Garbo didn't wear a uniform, and he didn't carry a rifle, but in that crucial summer of 1944, he might have been the most dangerous man in Europe. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. Still, the question lingers, why did it work so well? How could one man in a web of fiction outmaneuver a war machine built on brutal efficiency? The answer lies not simply in Garbo's genius, but in the blindness of the enemy. Hitler was obsessed with certainty and contemptuous of contradiction. His generals feared his wrath more than Allied bullets, and were reluctant to challenge assumptions once they had been set. Garbo exploited that psychological rigidity. The Nazis believed in his reports because they wanted them to be true. They fit neatly into a worldview that saw the Allies as clumsy, slow, and predictable. That confirmation bias, paired with Garbo's unshakable consistency, created a feedback loop of trust so strong it overrode common sense. It is a haunting example of how even the most disciplined regimes can fall prey to their own arrogance, and how sometimes the sharpest blade in a spy's arsenal isn't what he knows, but what his enemy so desperately believes. In the decades that followed, military academies pored over Operation Fortitude, not just as a case study in espionage, but as a textbook on psychological warfare. NATO intelligence officers reverse-engineered Garbo's communications to understand the specific pressures that made his illusions flourish. Cold War agencies on both sides studied the operation's structure, hoping to replicate its mechanisms of deception in a nuclear era that left no room for tactical error. Even today, Fortitude's blueprint echoes through cyberspace and disinformation campaigns, where truth and lies still wrestle for influence across digital borders. Yet what remains most startling, even now, is the sheer fragility of it all, that the largest amphibious assault in human history may have succeeded because one man convinced a dictator to believe in fiction just a little longer. It wasn't the might of armies that won the first day of Europe's liberation. It was a lie, whispered so convincingly into the ears of tyranny that it stalled the gears of war. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And yet, perhaps the most chilling lesson from Garbo's performance is how little it takes to derail an empire built on fear. The Nazis held vast territory, legions of armored divisions, and unmatched tools of violence, yet they faltered in the face of a lie carefully timed, precisely delivered, and deeply believed. The very machinery they relied on to dominate the obsession with control, the intolerance of dissent, the culture of obedience became their blindfold. Pujol didn't just feed their ignorance, he sharpened it into a weapon. In our modern era, where disinformation spreads faster than bullets and belief often trumps evidence, Garbo's campaign feels less like a relic and more like a prophecy. That one man with no army and no gun could seize the reins of history, using nothing but invented words and impeccable nerve, is both inspiring and terrifying. He remains a ghost in the narrative of D-Day, his story too strange to slot easily into textbooks. But he changed the course of the 20th century, with a fiction so dangerous, it masqueraded as truth. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. What Garbo accomplished was extraordinary, but it also exposed a truth modern militaries often forget: that data is not wisdom, and intelligence is not insight without context. The Germans received vast streams of information in 1944, and yet they were blind. Because they lacked the humility to question their own narratives, a single man with a typewriter outmaneuvered one of history's most feared regimes. His genius didn't lie in what he invented, but in what he understood: that people, even in war, want to believe something. And if you can learn what they want to believe, you can lead them anywhere. Today, as governments, corporations, and citizens navigate a world saturated with information and manipulated truths, Garbo's legacy looms larger than ever. He reminds us that the most dangerous ideas aren't always shouted from podiums or etched into manifestos. Sometimes, they arrive quietly, wrapped in persuasion, disguised as fact. In a war where steel met strategy, where beaches ran red with sacrifice, it was a man of shadows and illusions who carved open the door to victory. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In the end, Garbo's story is not merely a footnote of wartime trickery, but a mirror reflecting the tension between truth and belief in moments of crisis. His deception didn't just delay tanks, it exposed the limits of force when pitted against imagination. A blueprint can build a machine, but it cannot outwit conviction. Through a constellation of lies, spun with surgical precision, Garbo waged a psychological campaign that brought centuries of battlefield logic to its knees. His war was waged not in foxholes or bombers, but in the uncertain terrain of perception, where maps are drawn by trust and wars are won by suggestion. Today, his name is barely known to the public, his grave unmarked by medals or fame, but the legacy he authored still haunts the playbooks of modern warfare, a whispered warning that the line between reality and fiction is not drawn in ink, but in belief. And whether on the beaches of Normandy or the scroll of a digital feed, that line, once crossed, can reshape empires. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. So next time we weigh the tools that won World War II, the Sherman tanks, the Spitfires, the Enigma codebreakers, we must add one unlikely instrument to the list: the imagination of a man who never fired a shot. Juan Pujol García, with his cascading lies and invented legions, reshaped the battlefield, not by crushing it, but by bending it. He took the very scaffolding of war plans, codebooks, orders, and turned it into a story the enemy was desperate to believe. In doing so, he didn't just save lives, he redesigned the future. And perhaps that is the final lesson in Garbo's Odyssey, that the fiercest victories may be won not by those who destroy, but by those who dare to deceive. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And as history races forward into new theaters of conflict, Garbo's improbable triumph remains a quiet lighthouse amid the fog of modern warfare. His story stands as a testament to the strange, subtle powers that shape great events, often from the shadows. Whether through cyber manipulation, psychological operations, or narrative warfare, today's powers still chase echoes of fortitude, trying to master what he once conjured with wit and will alone. In a time when battles are increasingly fought over perception on screens, in feeds, through cleverly seeded falsehoods, Juan Pujol García reminds us that truth itself can be vulnerable if not vigilantly defended. But he also shows that, wielded wisely, fiction can be a force for liberation. In the end, Garbo's tale is not just about war, it's about the extraordinary places belief can take us, and the terrifying cost when it is put in the wrong hands. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In honoring Garbo's legacy, we must grapple with the paradox he embodied: a hero whose greatest act was convincing the enemy he was on their side. His quiet war, fought through forged letters and plausible lies, blurs the boundary between ethics and necessity in times of total conflict. He teaches us that sometimes, to protect the truth, one must first master the art of fiction. As we face new battlegrounds shaped by misinformation and artificial intelligence, Garbo's lesson reverberates louder than ever. That belief, even when built on a foundation of falsehoods, can become as real as any soldier's march. The British spy who stopped D-Day never stormed a trench or saluted a flag, but standing alone in the dim light of Europe's darkest hour, Juan Pujol García fired not bullets, but doubt, and in doing so, helped win the war. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Perhaps the most disquieting detail of Garbo's saga is not just how much he lied, but how easily those lies were absorbed, metabolized, and acted upon by a regime predicated on fear. In his mind, he imagined threats, events, and actors, and the Third Reich responded with steel, firepower, and blood. That a man with no army could summon whole divisions from the ether and paralyze one of history's most disciplined war machines speaks not only to Garbo's brilliance, but to something more dangerous, the human craving for certainty, even when false. In many ways, Pujol weaponized hope and dread in equal measure, fooling generals with the same efficacy as he might have inspired them in a different life. His deception wasn't just a military maneuver, it was a philosophical ambush, one that questions whether the stories we believe empower or betray us. In a world still grappling with disinformation, propaganda, and the warping of public narrative, Garbo's masterpiece stands as both beacon and warning. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. So as the sun rose over the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, the guns thundered, the soldiers advanced, and the world watched history pivot. But few knew that behind the chaos stood a man hunched over a transmitter, sending carefully crafted fictions into enemy ears. Juan Pujol García never received a parade or a monument. His battlefield bore no trenches, only tension. Yet perhaps that is why his victory endures. He reminds us that the greatest forces in war are often invisible. Faith, fear, and the power of a well-timed illusion. D-Day was not merely the sum of ships and soldiers, it was the culmination of a narrative more intricate than any battle plan. In that moment, as boots hit sand and empires collided, a frail, forgotten Spaniard changed the fate of continents using nothing but fabricated truths. His legacy whispers through every intelligence agency, every whisper campaign, every psyop that seeks to shape perception before a single shot is fired. Because war isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. And so, buried beneath the thunder of artillery and the static of intercepted transmissions, Juan Pujol García offered the Allies not just victory, but a new doctrine of warfare, one where intellect, illusion, and insight could rival bullets and bombs. He didn't just inspire a generation of intelligence officers, he redefined what victory could look like in an age of complexity. The battle for Normandy may have been won on the beaches, but the war for its opportunity was won in the quiet rooms of deception, where truth was less important than persuasion and belief became the battlefield itself. In recognizing Garbo's contribution, we honor not just a man, but an idea that the boldest weapons might live not on blueprints, but in minds. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. Juan Pujol García's brilliance lives on not just in dusty archives or secret files, but in every modern strategy that prizes influence over firepower. Today's battles may be waged over satellite networks and encrypted data streams, yet the essence remains the same: control the story, and you control the battlefield. Garbo didn't just deceive his enemy, he compelled them to act upon that deception, proving that in war, manipulation isn't a side tactic, it's a central front. His quiet campaign now echoes in digital disinformation wars, in psychological operations from Ukraine to cyberspace, where truth is constantly contested. As we face new threats forged in algorithms and viral memes, Garbo's legacy cautions and inspires in equal measure. He was not a commander nor a warlord, but he possessed what armies often lack: a mastery of belief. And in the end, it was belief that beat back the darkness. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. As we close the book on Pujol's story, one truth remains vivid. The battlefield of the human mind is vast, treacherous, and often underestimated. His campaign of deception didn't just shift enemy divisions, it shifted the very definition of what warfare could be. Today's generals plan cyber offensives and information control strategies that owe their DNA to the threads Garbo spun from his Lisbon hideout. But for all the complexity of modern military technology, his success reminds us that some of the most powerful victories arise not from overwhelming force, but from an adversary convinced to trust the wrong voice. Juan Pujol García turned fiction into fact, illusion into strategy, and doubt into a tool of liberation. In a war defined by scale and brutality, he proved that even the quietest whisper, if timed precisely, can carry louder than 1,000 guns. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. History often celebrates the overt heroes, the tank commanders, paratroopers, and codebreakers who risked everything under fire. But Garbo's triumph forces us to expand that definition. His war was waged behind enemy expectations, and his tools were faith, precision, and psychological dexterity. It's easy to overlook him because there were no explosions in his wake, only choices not made, reinforcements not sent, battles never fought. And that is his genius. He won by subtraction. By pulling threads from the enemy's tapestry of certainty, he made it unravel before the first wave ever hit the shore. As we reflect on D-Day's legacy and what it truly took to breach the gates of Fortress Europe, we must remember the man who wasn't there, yet whose presence shaped every step. Because war isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. As we leave behind the craters and cryptic messages of World War II, what remains is the unsettling realization that warfare's sharpest edge may be invisible. Juan Pujol García proved that the most powerful offense isn't always mounted with tanks, but with truths bent just slightly out of sight. His story has no medals ceremony, no grand unveiling, but its echo shapes the strategic minds of today more than any field manual. Garbo constructed not just a campaign of lies, but an alternate reality, one payload at a time, aimed directly at the Axis's limited imagination. That quiet doctrine, born in a Lisbon hotel room, forever blurred the line between soldier and storyteller, between force and finesse. He showed us that sometimes the most stunning victories don't roar across history, they whisper. And in that whisper, the world changed. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In the shadows of grand memorials and beneath the pages of polished history books, Garbo's paradox continues to linger, an unarmed ghost whose fiction outpaced the fury of war. He reminds us that victories are not always sealed in blood, and heroes do not always march in formation. His greatest act was not what he did, but what he prevented. The slaughter of thousands more, the prolonging of a nightmare, and the unraveling of a fragile hope. As we confront new arenas of conflict shaped by psychology, technology, and narrative, Garbo's mission feels less like the past and more like a quietly ticking future. He taught us that every truth can be countered, that every certainty is vulnerable, and that sometimes a carefully calculated lie can safeguard more lives than the sharpest steel. His is not just a story of war or espionage, it is a reminder that belief, invisible and volatile, remains the battlefield we most often forget. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And as the last echoes of World War II recede into the rear view of our collective memory, what remains is the uneasy understanding that the future of warfare may resemble Garbo's legacy more than any battlefield triumph. The craft of deception, subtle, cerebral, and unseen, now sits at the core of national defense doctrines. Artificial personas, synthetic media, and algorithmically powered propaganda have become the new agents of disorientation. In that future, Garbo stands not just as a symbol of ingenuity, but as a harbinger. His lies, once penned under duress to save a continent, now serve as blueprints in a world where wars are waged silently, invisibly, and often without a clear beginning. But beyond the strategy and science, his tale leaves us with something more profound, a call to vigilance. For only by recognizing the quiet power of belief can we defend against the weapons we cannot see. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Garbo's war ended not with a victory parade, but with silence, a legacy whispered rather than shouted. Yet in that understated finale lies the true measure of his impact. His lies were constructed not for glory, but to avert disaster. He sought not recognition, but results. Today, as the pressure to decipher truth grows more urgent in a fragmented world, his phantom fingerprint persists along the margins of every headline, every intelligence briefing, every psyop disguised as news. Juan Pujol García may have been a man out of place, a civilian caught in a military storm, but it was precisely that misfit genius that allowed him to tilt history. We remember radar, rockets, and resistance fighters, but we must also remember him. The invisible author of a fiction so dangerous, it subdued reality itself. Garbo didn't just fool Hitler, he outwitted war. War isn't just fought with bullets. It's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. So if history teaches us anything through the smoke and whispers of Juan Pujol García, it is this: the wars of tomorrow will not always announce themselves with sirens or invasions. They may spread word by word, idea by idea, planting seeds of false certainty in unguarded minds. And just as Garbo took advantage of a regime trapped by its own beliefs, future conflicts may be shaped not by brute force, but by the delicate, devastating art of narrative manipulation. In honoring his legacy, we must not only marvel at his achievement, but prepare for its consequences. For he revealed a battlefront without boundaries, one where armies are optional, and the stakes just as high. In that revelation lives a final truth, impossible to ignore. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. And so, as our understanding of warfare evolves with each passing decade, the tale of Juan Pujol García remains a cornerstone of a new kind of strategy, one fueled by intellect, narrative, and emotional acuity. His story is not a relic, but a roadmap, one that shows us how a single mind, wielding the right story at the right moment, can rewire the gears of history. Whether whispered across enemy lines or broadcast across cyberspace, the war for belief endures, and it is Garbo who showed us how potent that battlefield can be. He didn't just help win the war, he helped redefine how wars could be won. Garbo's legacy is not merely a spy's artifact, but a living doctrine for every age to come. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. For generations to come, Juan Pujol García's legacy will reverberate not through monuments or medals, but through the silent calculations of strategists, the whispered tactics of intelligence officers, and the moral quandaries of truth in warfare. His battlefield was formed between assumptions and timing, stitched together with audacity and meticulous fabrication. In redefining what it meant to fight for freedom, Garbo also redefined the methods by which freedom could be preserved. As conflicts continue to shift from formations to fabrications, from front lines to digital fault lines, his story becomes more than a curious wartime anecdote. It becomes a crucial manual for understanding human vulnerability in the face of persuasive storytelling. If a lie once saved the world from tyranny, then so too can a lie endanger it when wielded without conscience. As we navigate the future, we would do well to remember the man who charted that invisible terrain. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. So let his story stand not as mere anomaly, but as enduring proof that even in humanity's darkest hour, intellect and imagination could weaponize belief itself. Juan Pujol García reminded the world that minds, when strategically wielded, could cast longer shadows than armies. In the great ledger of World War II, his name may occupy a footnote, but his impact vibrates through every covert operation, every psychological campaign, every effort to outwit rather than outgun. He did not wear the face of a warrior, yet he proved courage often resides, not in confrontation, but in cunning. In that quiet theater of deception, he struck perhaps the most precise blow of all, striking not at troops, but at the trust of tyranny. And that, more than any bomb or bullet, helped shape the world that followed. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Perhaps that is Garbo's final, most haunting achievement, not that he lied so convincingly, but that his greatest weapon was never deception for its own sake, but the trust he so carefully constructed and betrayed. In war, where truth is so often the first casualty, he proved it could still be a tool if wielded backwards. The man who built armies from air and fortified lies with elegance altered history, not by overpowering the enemy, but by rewriting their expectations. His victory unfolded in silence, his legacy unclaimed but enduring. And so, as we remember D-Day not only as a military triumph but as a masterclass in psychological warfare, we find in Juan Pujol García a final reminder: the world is not only changed by force, it is changed by belief. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And with that, Garbo steps back into history's half-light, a man who lived in lies to protect the truth. His story forces us to confront the uncomfortable power of belief and how fragile the world becomes when reality can be molded like clay in the hands of a skilled illusionist. As the sun set on his quiet war, the footprints he left behind did not erode. They grew more defined, etched into the strategies of future conflicts and echoed in the algorithms of influence that now shape our understanding of the world. Pujol's war didn't end, it evolved. And around every corner of history that follows, his ghost walks quietly ahead, reminding us that the wars of ideas are not just real, but decisive. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. So as the curtain falls on this tale of shadows and subtleties, let us not forget the theater that made victory possible. Not every hero fires a gun or storms a beach. Some sit alone in dim rooms, hearts pounding, crafting sentences more powerful than salvos, decisions more impactful than detonations. Juan Pujol García, the gentle saboteur of certainty, handed the Allies a triumph not through fire, but through faith misdirected. In a war defined by violence, his was a warfare of nuance, a masterpiece of conviction spun from fiction. As we write new chapters of history, ever more entangled with narrative and nuance, we must carry forward the lesson of the man who used trust as both sword and shield. Because war isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And in that final reckoning, perhaps what Garbo offered us was not just a wartime tactic, but a timeless warning that the most perilous front line is drawn not on maps, but in the mind. His lies, laced with precision and purpose, taught us that the fiercest battles are often those without gunfire, fought in silence, in doubt, in the theater of human perception. Juan Pujol García did not chase glory, yet he became an architect of it. He did not seek fame, yet his fingerprints marked the logic of every psychological operation since. His story closes not with an explosion, but with the revelation that belief, once stirred, can remake the world. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything.